Good morning, everybody. I want to thank you for tracking along in the last unit there. A lot of thoughtful questions that I'm trying to answer. I think I've answered most of them by now, but if I haven't gotten to yours, I will, I promise. Thanks for engaging in that thoughtfully. I know that it's harder to engage in the content when we're not all in the same place, and um, maybe harder to stay motivated that way. So I'm proud of you guys for leaning in. Thanks for turning in your student responses and then the paper. You'll see grades going in the next couple of days here. And I'm looking forward to hearing what you have to say. I wanted to transition and do a little bit of a tweener unit here. I don't intend for it to be very long. The next thing we're going to tackle after this is actually human sexuality. Obviously a very personal topic. And I think this one will be kind of personal too. It's obviously quite relevant. There's lots of things I've been wrestling with. We're going on almost 5 weeks of being, shut down from school and having shelter in place after that. And to be honest, I've been kind of up and down personally. Find myself kind of waxing and waning in my sense of confidence, hope. I'm definitely more of a melancholy, so I feel the world events that we're experiencing pretty heavily. I imagine some of you are the same way. So I've been thinking through a few things in regards to COVID-19 and how it relates to my Christian faith. So I wanted to talk through a few of those things, and then I sent you a reading that I found was really helpful to me. It's by John Eldredge, who's a Christian author who's been publishing books for a couple of decades, and you might find that you really like him. It's about Christian hope. So I'd like you to read that sort of in tandem with what we're doing over the next maybe 4 or so days. But I want to talk to you about the ways that COVID-19 has even sort of reintroduced doubts into my thinking here and there about Christianity. And interestingly enough, even though I might say I wrestle with doubt, here and there throughout the days that we're going through, I would also say that I feel God's presence in a sort of visceral way. That isn't always true for me. Has been true in my life, but I find that during very difficult times, it's more true. I don't know if you have anything like this in your life, but in prayer and in worship, will often feel, I guess I can only describe them as chills, a sense of warmth and also chill at the same time. And I have felt that and been thankful for God's presence. We actually started the year in the chapel series saying that there's gonna be times in life where just knowing the story of Christianity isn't going to be good enough. We're going to need to know the author. And I have found that leaning into that over the last 5 weeks has been really important to me. My spiritual disciplines and exercises are much more consistent. I'm in need of the presence of Jesus, or I should say maybe I'm aware of my need for the presence of Jesus now more than I normally am. But I'm also trying to be thoughtful and thinking clearly as we go. So, we'll try to treat those two things in tandem: spiritual disciplines and also disciplined thought. So today, a little bit of an introduction to some of the thinking that I think is relevant over these days. And I've already kind of meandered through 4.5 minutes, so maybe we won't get very far today. But one of the things that we have to recognize is that there are reasons why we doubt. It's not actually all that random, although I do think there are times where doubt is sort of a matter of spiritual warfare, and also maybe a sense of sort of seasonal experiences that some people go through. But one thing that is, I think, pretty much true across the board is that doubt typically arises when something happens or something is learned that we can't fit very naturally or neatly into our worldview. Right? We look through our worldview lenses and we interpret the world around us, and normally, in normal circumstances, things just sort of naturally fit into the worldview and the belief set that we already hold. But there are times in life where things come along that don't fit. And we think, wait, I don't know if my worldview can handle this. I don't know if my belief set can handle this. I don't know if my beliefs are true if they can't explain this thing that I'm experiencing or coming to know. Right? That's why we have said worldview has to have explanatory power. It has to be able to explain the world around us. Now, there are some rather functional ways that I think Christianity does that with COVID-19, but I want to, also reach into the fact that there are, certain weights that we're carrying around with us over these weeks that aren't necessarily, dealt with functionally, So one of the things that I'm realizing is that in some ways I experienced the onset of COVID-19, even really back in January, where it wasn't really yet understood as a threat to the United States. I already started to feel like, wait, how does this fit into Christianity? But one of the things I've come to believe is that process of being knocked off balance and realizing that there's something new, an experience or a thought or a piece of information that doesn't seem to fit into my worldview, I don't think that's actually altogether negative. Really, one of two things are going to happen. One, I may have to actually think differently. I may have to come to realize, I'm not actually thinking correctly about this event. And there's definitely times in my life where I've had to come to realize I'm not thinking straight. I'm not thinking about this the way that I ought to. And so it needs to be refined. Or our worldview will have to be refined. I actually think both of those things can be very, very positive. It's actually what C.S. Lewis describes in his book, A Grief Observed, which he wrote upon the death of his wife, Joy Davidson. He basically came to realize that there were certain things that he was holding to. He called it a house of cards, his faith as a house of cards, that needed to be knocked down so that it could be rebuilt. So I've actually been thinking about the definition of the word catastrophe. One of the reasons I've been thinking about it is that it comes up, in news reports and things like that. But I've also been thinking about it because of a Christian philosopher named Nicholas Wolterstorff. And he sort of describes the same process of grief in a lament for his son. His son died at the age of 25 in a mountain climbing accident in Austria. And as a Christian philosopher, he was set to writing about it. So Lewis in his Grief Observed and Nicholas Wolterstorff in his Lament for a Son both describe this idea of catastrophe, in a sense, a realization that we can never be the same. And while we might mourn that, and we might find that that's a hard truth, there's also things about that that are actually quite good. There are things about me that need to be left behind in this season of life. There are things about our world that need to be left behind in this season of life. We don't want actually to be the same. If I think about where my hope is, it better not be in a return to normalcy, actually. My hope as a Christian, and my hope as a father, and my hope as a husband is that it won't return to normal. Rather that I'll be refined. My thinking will be refined, and my worldview will be refined so that my worldview actually comes to be more in alignment with Christ, with actual Christianity, because there's truly parts of my worldview, my implicit assumptions, that are really actually kind of out of alignment with Christianity. I think that that's one of the things we see in modern Christianity, is that there are all these sort of riders and asterisks that we place on Christianity. So these things that kind of find their way into our belief set without having been drawn from Scripture and without having been drawn from Christ, but having just been absorbed from culture. And I think that there are aspects of my worldview that are being challenged that aren't actually Christian, and I have to be able to separate those things. My assumptions of, comfort, and my assumptions of prosperity, and my assumptions of the ability of science to solve every issue, and all those things are maybe in a real way tangential to Christianity and not at a core Christianity itself. So I have been shaken in some ways over the last 5 weeks, but maybe what's being shaken is not my Christianity, but these false expectations that have found their way into my Christianity. These beliefs that are not inherent to Christianity that I've been carrying with me, that I have an entitlement to a comfortable life, a happily ever after. And so I'm starting to realize that maybe, especially now, doubt can be a really good thing, because doubt may cause me to examine my beliefs and realize some of them are out of alignment with Christianity. This is actually just the first slide of 3 that I had planned for today, but I don't think we'll probably get much further. What I really pray for, what I really hope for, is that my Christianity, my love of Christ, will be refined in this season, one way or another, and that my hope will look more and more like Christian hope and less like these other riders and asterisks that I've placed on my Christian faith. So what I hope is that you'll be reading that John Eldredge chapter, it's actually 2 chapters, over the next couple of days and into the weekend, and start to consider, like, what does real Christian hope look like? And where have I placed my hope that actually needs to be edited out of my worldview? Where have I started to actually absorb non-Christian assumptions that need to be reconsidered and reevaluated? And I think that we can prayerfully and hopefully approach truth this way, that the truth will be revealed to us. Even the ways that we've misunderstood truth will be revealed to us, that we can, through doubt, come to have a stronger faith, a stronger understanding of the truth and who Jesus is and what he's doing. It won't make it easier. You don't have to read too many Psalms before you find that there's some real challenges in life. And that Christian lament and Jewish lament before it are a very real part of what it means to relate to our God, and he can handle it. Crying out to him, even in anger and in sorrow, is a far cry better than relating to others in other ways. It's essential to our Christian belief to cry out. The Jewish people cry out in Egypt, and then the Exodus happens. The cries about injustice, God relates to those things. So we're going to be continuing to talk about ways that actually, I think, COVID-19 could actually confirm my Christianity, confirm my Christian beliefs, because I think maybe Christianity handles COVID-19 better than any other worldview does. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that tomorrow. Sorry if I was rambling. I'm trying to be a little bit more raw, real in this subunit here that we're doing. I hope you enjoy the reading, and I'll be checking back in with you tomorrow. See ya.